Hi, for everybody who hasn't met me yet. I am Camille Leon. I am the founder of this big, beautiful, growing, glorious organization. All right, so I'm going to start by telling you about today's guest. Timothy, I'm not going to say his last name. Timothy, you'll have to share your last name later. I just don't want to mispronounce it. Timothy is one of the most prolific children's book authors of all time, having just completed his 77th fairy tale of the heart, featuring Bliss Fairy Bear. He is the creator of The Magical Miracle of You, a self-empowerment course for children and families. He also created the Power Animal Frolics, a yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong course for children where they exercise along with 7 power animals in Disney quality costumes. I don't have any kids, so, but it sounds like a lot of fun. Might have been fun when I was growing up. He also runs a quantum energy training academy where he's been certifying graduates to teach multiple forms of quantum energy healing, meditation, yoga, qigong, and tai chi for over 35 years. Timothy has been in this space for a very long time. Yay. And Timothy, is there anything that you would like to add to our intro of who you are and what you're doing?
Well, it's wonderful to be here with you, Camille, and everyone that's here with us now and who will be on the recording. My last name is Stuetz, and very few people in the world, ever since I've been a child, have been able to pronounce that one right. No, I use all those modalities. I also do a course in sacred parents, magical children, and I'm developing a course in conscious conception. And all those different modalities, basically I use as tools to awaken and establish people with a connection with their soul. So they're living a soul-based life and can use that to achieve their full potential in everything they're doing.
Wonderful. Wow, that's great. Okay, so just for those of you who haven't been on a business journey interview with me yet, I'm just going to share kind of the point of this. When I started the HCC 10 years ago, I had no idea what it meant to be in business. I didn't know the things that were going to come up, the things that would come up if I continued growing, the things that might have come up if I had chosen something that was going to allow me more of a solopreneur path. I just didn't know, right? And so now I find 10 years in, the thing that I still want to know is how have other people done it? What are the things that come up over the span of a business? With the idea that the more you know about what might happen, the more you can feel prepared if and when it does happen. And of course, as we all found out last year, there are some things that there's just no way to prepare for, and yet having a support network and kind of bouncing around ideas in the world of what's it mean to be in business and connect our values to our money, it's a good conversation for us to keep having. So, Timothy, I guess I want to know, and you did say you've been doing this for 35 years. So not just how and when did you start on your entrepreneurial journey, but what were you doing before being in business on your own? Did you go all in right away, or did you have kind of a full-time gig that was taking care of the bills so that you could kind of start more slowly? How did that go in the beginning?
Well, an astrologer once told me that I wouldn't change jobs, I would change careers. So over the 35 to 40 years, I've had a lot of careers. 1972, when I graduated from college, I went to work for an international certified public accounting firm and was there for 2.5 years. And the only reason I left was because I saw partners who were gray and bald long before they should be gray and bald. And also because I discovered there was a lot of corruption going on that didn't resonate with me. So I went to work for an international finance company for a couple of years and was their director of internal audit. And I guess I saw more corruption and decided that I wanted to be out of that. So I literally took everything that I knew from those two positions and started my own consulting firm. And for 2 years, around 2 years, presented seminars throughout the country on mortgage banking. And that was about the time that I also had sort of a spontaneous spiritual awakening and started to meditate. So amidst all of that, after about 2 years of putting these seminars together and doing all the organization and planning and really running them all by myself and pulling in different speakers, as I was flying to the last weekend seminar, something just said I was done with it. And so I literally just walked away from it. And not too long after that, I woke up one morning, literally the first thing out of my mouth was, if Hershey's can make chocolate kisses, then I can sell chocolate French kisses. So that started me on a whole new path of creation and finding somebody to design the packaging for it, somebody to design the product, which got me involved in a lawsuit because she wanted more after she did it, and found somebody to make the chocolate for me. And then they decided that this was going to be something that might really take off. So they kind of like tripled the price on me. So not to be daunted, I literally decided I was going to open up my own chocolate shop and buy the equipment and learn how to make chocolate, and found some people to train me and started doing chocolate. And had to buy a sandwich shop in order to get the permits and everything to do that. And
okay, so you have had quite an interesting and yeah, we'll just say a wild and winding road for this business journey of yours. Yeah, guys, so you were like, you're not going to get bored. Or I should say, you don't need to get bored unless you really get to a point where like, oh, I can breathe. Let me take it easy for a little while. But really, there's always something new and fun.
yes, especially if you just follow what's being presented to you. You know, it's like the candy shop, the chocolates, you know, I didn't investigate everything. I didn't know everything. So I was selling good chocolates, and, you know, I didn't know that there was chocolates that are full of wax and they can sell those at any time of year, but I was using good chocolate. So I had to ship dry ice. Otherwise it would melt. And it was a novelty product. So I expected to make a lot of money and ended up losing a lot of money, but it was what it led me to, which is absolutely amazing, is that one day in the chocolate shop, I got a delivery of a box that I didn't order, and I opened it up and it was full of teddy bears. And being a certified public accountant, I did a lot of research and found out who actually those teddy bears belong to, and that's a whole nother story. But
so those bears were the seed for your fairy tales from the heart featuring Bliss Berry Bear.
Exactly. The people that actually own the bears gave me one of the bears. They gave me the whole box of bears, actually. And I carried one of them around in the car with me. I literally put it on the seat next to me and drove around with it. And one day I was at a stoplight and I picked it up and I asked it who it was, and actually heard the word poet bear. So at that, I'd been writing a lot of love poetry, a lot of philosophy, and decided that I would put a book together with my poetry and philosophy and call it Tales of the Heart by Poet Bear, put it in a box with the book and the bear. And that was actually the first time anybody combined a stuffed animal with a book. And when I got the whole product together and sat it on the counter, my mother looked at it and said, "You missed your calling. That should have been for kids." And I said, "Well, Mom, you just haven't read my stuff. It's not for kids. I'll write for kids." And that planted another seed. 6 months later, I literally found myself writing my first children's story. It just, the idea popped in and it flowed out. Um, and
Okay. So how long ago was that? What year was that for the first?
Where are we? That was probably early 80s,
Okay.
maybe 1983, 84. And the chocolate didn't pan out. I realized I wasn't going to have enough money writing stories for a while. And so I actually went back into being an accountant for a while. And the first job I took after 2 weeks, I found out that the man I went to work for had embezzled $9 million on a securities fraud, and ended up leaving there in probably about 6 weeks with a gun pointed at me. And I basically disappeared off the face of the earth for a while, just feared for my life. And right about the same time, I discovered Reiki, which I was shown that in a dream, but not told what it was. So everything's just kind of been divine for me. One thing disappears and another thing shows up that I'm not even looking for. Took a
So
Reiki.
that's great. A certain amount of flow to new doors opening, doors closing, doors opening. And
Exactly.
the more we keep our eyes open to, especially to the solutions, right? Problems will show up. They seem to anyways. And as long as we keep our eyes open to where's the window or the door that's opening, where's the solution, then we're going to find those solutions more quickly, more easily. I will say, one of the things about listening to you, Timothy, I think when I first started the Holistic Chamber of Commerce, I had it in my head that I was going to get it started, and it would take a couple of weeks to kind of figure out the details, and then boom, it would take off, right? Like wildfire, so to speak. And what I found was that there were a lot of lessons for me to learn, right? And it continued to grow steadily, but it was kind of more slow and steady. And now here I am 10 years later, right? 11 years later, and oh, I've got an ongoing business. So it's easy to get distracted by all the messaging out there, especially from some coaches, right? Do this, get my 3-month package, and you'll go from wherever you are to 6 months overnight. Not to say, by the way, that there aren't great coaches out there. I have worked off and on with coaches since prior to the HCC and throughout the HCC. I'm just saying that every once in a while I see a coach's ad that implies that it's going to happen overnight. Oprah still works in her business, right? Timothy still works in his business. I still work in my business. If we are indeed here to help heal the world, that's an ongoing process, right? It's not I'm going to do this thing and it's going to live a life without me right away. Might eventually live a life without you, right? Okay, so now, sorry, Tim, sorry to distract.
Not a distraction. I mean, it's so true. It's like we think we're doing one thing, we think it's going to happen at a certain pace. And for me, it's all of this has, I've kept wondering, literally, I personally, I'm not attached to my children's stories, but I read every one of them over and over and over again, and I'm amazed, and I ask who wrote them. I mean, I even found one in my computer and read it, and I didn't even know I wrote it. So I'm amazed at the process and just surrendering to everything that I learn along the way. Even being here with you, which is through the connection of Savante. I met Savante because my partner came home one day and said, "Hey, I found this workshop." And to me, it looked like something that she needed to go to because I definitely didn't need any other meditation or healing path at that time. And it's like, okay, let's go. And it opened up entire new worlds for me. I mean, I ended up meeting Savante through there. I ended up meeting the illustrator for my children's books. And when my partner and I left that first weekend training, we both looked at each other and, I told her, I said, I only went because I thought you wanted to go. And she said, well, I only went because I thought you wanted to go. So, I mean, that just led to, again, more openings that I never expected. And I've got lifelong friends out of it. And I learned a lot about me, which in this whole process, even with the COVID, for the last 7 years, I've kind of been in a consolidation phase. And I've done a lot in these last 35 years and a lot of healing work and worked with a lot of the most traumatized people on this planet, children, adults, and everything else. And so the last, I've specialized in trauma care, going into hospitals a lot, hospice care, holding people when they're transitioning. And the last 7 years has just been kind of a regroup phase. And so COVID really didn't change much of my regroup phase. But what it did shift was me taking an overall look at really what's happening in the world on deeper levels and seeing how I want to emerge and what I want to offer service-wise going forward from here.
Great.
So, yeah.
That's brilliant. So now I have a question. Just because we have such a wide variety of members and even wider variety of people kind of in all of our social media audience, have you always been a solopreneur? Have you hired any consultants or any staff? And maybe what was the first position that you hired help with?
Well, in developing all those products, I used a lot of consultants. I used a lot of outside contractors.
Right.
The other thing I did once I learned Reiki and Tai Chi and Qigong and was teaching, I formed a nonprofit corporation, and my love of children, my Tai Chi teacher connected me with the Boys and Girls Club, and I became really close with the executive director there. And at the time, he came in, I was just helping out. And Boys and Girls Clubs at the time, they made their money by doing bingo and a couple of nights a week. And that club was filled with so much smoke, I literally had to have a desk set outside for me because I couldn't go in the building. But one day he walked up and he plopped a grant on my desk and he said, "Do you want to apply for this?" And I said, "Sure." And that's when you actually had to type a grant on a typewriter. So we actually got accepted for this grant, and we developed a tobacco education program for children, computer games. And that led to 10 years of developing grants with the state of California, various counties in California, writing children's books for them, different educational programs. At one time, I had a staff of 12 people. We also did mentoring high school students at one point in time. So yeah, I've been the whole route with different businesses and different aspects of what I've been doing all of this time. And it was easy. I mean, whatever I needed appeared.
Well,
And
I
what,
like that. I like the reminder that there are sometimes grants out there, government funded grants, and also grants that are funded by, many major retail corporations have a foundation arm. And these days, at least for those who are in the US, there are a lot of government funded grants and low interest loan programs to help entrepreneurs, even solopreneurs, with the current conditions, right? So there are sometimes sources of money that we wouldn't ordinarily be thinking of available. And as we open our mind to what might be out there, just keep in mind there are some opportunities that might be there that you haven't even thought of yet, right?
and there
So-
are people that specialize in knowing what those are. And if you can find somebody and tell them what you do, they might be able to help you find a grant.
Yeah, well, and I will just mention for anybody, so today is March 17th, we have a partner on Opportunity Fund who is partnering with us for anybody who is looking for funds through the current round of PPP, which we sent an email about it. And I may be able to include that link again for those of you who are potentially interested. Okay, so let's get to next question here, because on some level, it's all about who is hearing about your work, how many people are hearing about your product or your service, right? The solution that you provide. The more people hear about it, eventually the more people are gonna buy it. I mean, obviously there are a lot more elements involved than just that, but if nobody's hearing about it, then nobody can make that purchase. So what right now is your favorite way of getting the word out about the books, about your energy work, about your trauma work? What kind of channels are you using to talk about transformations?
My least favorite thing to do. I'm a creator that wants to sit here and do nothing but write more children's stories and do seminars and retreats for people. And the last thing I want to do is find ways to get that information out there. And I'm actually working with a marketing expert right now and designing different ways and different programs to go onto YouTube and Facebook and put the information out on what I'm doing.
Okay, great.
Running
So
some Facebook ads, and that's the direction that I'm headed over the next couple of months here. And it's really the first time that I've made a direct attempt to market what I do, other than send out tons of letters to agents and publishers. And I actually had two publishers. My first story, a publisher wanted to publish it right away and signed a contract. And it was actually a publisher of somebody who was very popular back in the 80s, Ken Carey. And then he decided to publish one children's book before me. And after he'd committed all the funds to having it printed and everything, he asked me to read it. And after I read it, I said, this ain't going anywhere. This is terrible. And it actually caused him to go broke. So he didn't publish my books because he was out of business. And then Unity Church, I met somebody there, and their children's book division liked one of my stories, and they had me go through 6 rewrites. And it was looking very promising. And after the 6th rewrite, I got a letter that said, we can't publish this because it has a BB gun in it. And it's like, well, it had the BB gun in volumes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Why didn't you tell me about this earlier? So anyway, now I'm back to starting over with the books, social media, and and with a set plan for getting the information out there.
Well, a lot of people have had a lot of success with going directly to their market. I mean, I think that that is one thing that the internet has opened up. One thing that social media has really opened up, right, is you create your product or your service, you put it out there, and then you go from there, right? Your people will find you and you will find your people. So, okay, so is there, well, you've shared a little bit about your challenges throughout your whole journey, and I love to see that, you know, everything that came up and you found a solution and you kept going. So guys, right, we don't want to get stopped by the stuff that comes up. We want to come together and go, all right, what are my options? What are my possibilities? Tim, what are some tips that you have for someone who is just starting out, or maybe somebody who's on the road but maybe has gotten stuck?
Always stay focused on your heart. No matter any obstacle that I've ever come across, whether it's been related to business, related to personal issues, relationships, children, no matter what, I always just keep returning to my heart and going inside and asking for direction and being willing to take the next step and listening. I always want to go to the source. I want to know why I'm stuck. What is it in me that needs to be opened up so that it can create the avenues for me to flow through?
Yeah,
so
like on some level, and I hate to admit this, but it's true even for me in the HCC, very often we're joined at the hip to our businesses. As an example, for me to be able to hire someone to do some of the work that I could no longer do, and also to create a network of chapter presidents, most of whom I'd never met in person, right? I had to deal with trust issues that were from, right? That were from yay high, childhood emotional baggage, right? Trust issues, but it had to do with how do I grow my business? I had commitment issues. Well, let me just tell you, nothing like thinking you're going to have to hire a staff person, even part-time, and become responsible for their wages. Oh gosh, then you got to deal with your money. Well, okay, I had to deal with my money issues, and again, more trust issues and commitment issues. Not that I had any issues from growing up, as you know, except for I did start something called the Holistic Chamber of Commerce. So you might guess that maybe there were some issues that needed to be healed, if you will. Okay, so Tim, before we close the interview and move into our breakouts, is there any last tip that you would like to share with everybody here today, and also our audience to watch the recording?
Yeah, just stay connected to your heart and take care of yourself on a daily basis. You know, for me, daily meditation for the last 40 years, daily yoga, daily qigong a couple of times a day, you know, standing in the sun, getting sun on my body, standing barefoot in the earth, eating natural. Over the last 40 years, I've refined my diet many times, eating as naturally and as organic as I can, getting sleep, basic walking, healthy relationships. Yeah, literally taking care of yourself every day for whatever works for you, that nurtures you, that gives you the inspiration and the energy and the health and the stamina to do what you want to do in the service in the world. I'm blessed. I've been doing this for 40 years. I just turned 70. I have no aches, no pains in my body. I've I've never taken any medications. I'm happier than I've ever been. I feel like I'm about 17. So I know if you take care of yourself, everything else follows with that.
Yeah, it can be tempting to let go of some of our self-care routines, right? I mean, there was definitely a point in my business journey where I was stuck in the I can't afford it. And that included I can't afford to spend time on these things, and I can't afford to go get the treatments that I want to get, the massages, the acupuncture, the whatever, right? Find ways to make time to take care of yourself, because burnout is not pretty. And the healthier and happier we are, the more we can keep seeing all those solutions that help us build our businesses.
And even just simple walks in nature, it's like some of the greatest inventions in the world, people think about them, they work on them, they do everything, and then there's just something they can't get, and all they do is they go out and look at a sunset or look at the ocean, and all of a sudden the answer is there. So
yeah,
yeah.
And there are plenty of stories out there, even in mainstream business, where you hear that there's a founder of a large company that is a big fan of taking hikes out in nature, and that's where some of their aha moments show up. So on that note, thank you so much, Timothy.